Welcome to our STRIVE Masterclass panel on marketing. Today we have with us 3 marketing and media experts who will be answering all of your questions. We have a lot to get through this morning and we don't have a lot of time, so we want to really make sure that our speakers are able to answer any questions you may have in the chat and get through the ones that were sent to ahead of us sent to us ahead of time. So with that said, we're going to really try to, get things moving. I will say this, that the way this is going to work is our speakers have been, we were sent some questions earlier, and what we're going to do is I'm going to go through the questions and I'm going to ask them to our speakers, and they're going to take turns answering them, maybe help each other if there's some cross knowledge there in those questions. If anybody has any questions that they would like to ask any of the speakers, just go ahead and put them in the chat. With that, I'll make sure that they get to the right speaker and we'll ask those. We'll save some time at the end to get through any questions that people have. We're going to try to get through as much as possible. What I'm going to do is I want to make sure that everybody's muted and that nobody has their video on, so we can just focus on our 3 speakers today. With that said, let's get to it and introduce these marketing and media experts that have agreed to come on and share their knowledge with us. From Moxie Design, we have Michele Harrison. From Erica Rice Digital Consulting, we have Erica Rice. And from Murawski Photography, we have Mason Murawski.
Morning.
Let's go ahead and start with you, Michele. Could you sort of tell us a little bit about Moxie Design and what you do?
Of course. Everybody, thank you guys for joining us. I'm Michele Harrison with Moxie Design. I'm the creative director and founder. And Moxie Design is a full-service creative agency that helps businesses with their marketing and creative needs. I've been a designer for over 20 years now, working in different industries from advertising, public relations and marketing, apparel design, wholesale, retail, and print. And today I'm here to specifically talk to you guys about print marketing and design and answer any questions you guys might have.
Great. Well, welcome, Michele. Thank you for being here. Erica, can you please tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Sure. So my name is Erica Rice. Thanks for joining us today. My business is Erica Rice Digital Consulting, and I've been in business for a little over 2 years now. My background has been in website design, graphic design, and then moving more into the online marketing space this past year or 2. So yeah, we usually start with like designing your website, but then have lots of marketing talks, throughout the way to make sure that you're going to be able to use your website is actually working for you after we launch it. So email campaigns, social media, just making sure you have a clear messaging across everything. So today we're going to be talking about I'm going to be focusing mostly on the website part of it and digital marketing. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you, Erica. Mason, let's tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, Joey. Thanks for having me today. My name is Mason Murawski with Murawski Photography, LLC, and I've been in business for over 10 years. I graduated from Christopher Newport University with 2 degrees, Design Tech Theater and Studio Art Photography. So I implement both of my design and my photography degrees each and every day while working with business clients and families alike. So looking forward to this panel.
Great. Well, thank you for being here as well. All right, let's get into it. Michele, this first question's for you, and it's an intense one. Why is print important at all? A lot of people have heard that it is pretty much dead when it comes to marketing. What's your response to that?
Well, it's funny because I actually hear that a lot, and it's not true. Print is, I think there will always be a place for print. In the digital age, things have changed a little bit, but the one thing print can do that digital can't is make that connection. It's a tangible thing you can touch, feel, smell. I mean, it's one of the senses that we have that I don't think people are ever going to want to get rid of, despite what different information comes out. So I would tell people that if that's something that they're hearing, to take a look at, you still have newspaper, you still walk into a car dealership and you've got those brochures, you walk into restaurants, and these print pieces are things that connect people to the brand and connect the brand to the audience, but also convey more than just site. So it's really something that is important and should be considered into any marketing that a company is doing, not necessarily that it needs to happen. Different markets have different needs, but it is definitely not dead. It is, I don't see it going away anytime soon. In fact, right now, because of those tangible, being able to touch and feel and have that connection, we're seeing more print being used today.
Yeah, I will say that our membership advisors really love being able to go meet a new prospect and actually hand them something physically.
Right.
It really helps build that connection.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Erica, let's move over to you with a little bit of website. Let's get a big one out of the way. And what website type should people go with, or what do you recommend? I know there's WordPress, Wix, Squarespace, Weebly. I'm sure there's a dozen others. What's your recommendation and why?
Yeah. Well, I am a big fan of WordPress. I've been working with WordPress a long time. It's one of the ones that have been around the longest, and I love the open source part of it. I do want to say that WordPress, if you get your website at wordpress.com, it's not the same as a wordpress.org website. WordPress.com is actually more similar to something like Wix or Weebly, where it's like a simpler version. It's more like a web builder and not a CMS, which is a content management system. So you will run into some limitations with something like WordPress.com website. Same thing with Wix or Weebly. So if you just need a standard website, you know, like 5 informational pages, something like that, I think Wix or Weebly would be fine. It's mostly where you get into like the templates. There's not as many to choose from with something like Weebly. And then, you know, it's just like, it's unlimited what you can do with WordPress. And especially so there is that kind of a learning curve with WordPress. So if you're working with a developer and they're going to be managing your site, like definitely I would go with WordPress. You know, you'll need a good host. I recommend going with like something like SiteGround. Kinsta is another good one. Flywheel is another good one for WordPress sites.
What's the difference between actually going with WordPress and then getting a host? What's that about?
Yeah, so they have, some hosts will do managed WordPress for you, which is where they're updating all of the plugins and themes and WordPress core to make sure you're up to date. That's really super important for security reasons. But other than that, yeah, WordPress.com is going to limit you as far as like being able to install extra plugins. You have to pay more per month to be able to get access to those, but you know, a good developer is going to know like the best plugins that aren't going to cost you a ton of money.
Okay, great. Mason, let's ask some photography and video questions. Let's get that going. Here we go. A good one probably for you for opportunity to sell yourself is people want to know why they should hire a professional photographer or videographer for their business marketing.
Sure, that's a great question, Joey. I get asked that a lot, or I see people online asking that question. And one of the quickest answers to that is that the professionalism of the quality shown on your website is going to communicate that level of professionalism about your organization, about your company on the website. So if you have low quality images or unprofessional photos, it's going to show, and you're going to have that basically being the forefront of what represents your company. So your photos and your website are hugely important when it comes to making a first impression on customers. So you really don't want to let them down when they do click the link to visit your website. So that would be my first answer to that, a little bit in a nutshell.
It's very great. And for everybody listening, if you have any questions or if you want any clarification or follow up on anything any of our speakers are saying, just go ahead and type it in the chat and I'll make sure it gets to them. In the same kind of realm, Michele, what are your thoughts on hiring an online company to design your business's logo? It's cheaper, right? Just to go with like Fiverr or one of those online sources. What do you recommend on that?
Yeah, I recommend not going that route. And making that comment, I also understand that sometimes there are budgetary restrictions that drive people into going in that direction. I have worked with several clients that have gone this route, and ultimately they always end up coming back to a designer to fix something or They've realized that they don't have all the file types that they need, and have quickly realized that going that route to get all the appropriate file types actually costs them more money. And that wasn't something that was put up front for the customers that have gone this route. And now they've actually spent as much or more money than they would have if they'd just gone with a designer to begin with. One of the things when you hire a designer is you're hiring someone who is going to sit down, they're going to talk to you, they're going to figure out exactly what it is that you're looking for. And one of the jobs of a designer, whether or not we realize it, is we are kind of therapists at the same time. So we're talking to you and we're listening to what you say, and sometimes we're learning more about, we're finding that underlying message that you might not have realized yet. So we're, I don't know, we're figuring out your company and figuring out who the competitors are and what direction you want to go and how we're going to reach these target audiences with all this one logo, and how to do it in the best way possible. When you go to these online designers, especially the ones that are offering you a $39 logo, they're not putting that time into it. So if you're looking for a logo that you really think is going to represent you the best way possible, and to get your personality and idea out there within that image, I would not recommend going that way. There's a saying that, and this applies, I think, to everything, but you can get it good, you can get it fast, or you can get it cheap. So if you're going to go the cheap route, you're not going to have it, it's not going to be good, and it's not going to be fast. And you just take those 3 points and decide which thing you want to focus on, and the other two are what you're going to end up, possibly getting. So just something to take into mind. And again, I mean, I don't judge anybody for going that route. I understand the financial restrictions, just usually you're not going to get something that you're ultimately going to be proud of. And you're possibly going to run into problems later on down the road when you want to get a t-shirt printed. You're not going to have the files that you need.
Definitely. We did have a question in the chat. Somebody wanted Erica to go back over briefly the difference between WordPress.com and WordPress.org, and what that difference was.
Okay, yeah, so the biggest difference, a lot of people will start with WordPress.com and go with like the free version or the $8 a month version. And then they still have ads at the bottom of their website, things like that. So you're not going to get that if you're going with a host and you're getting a WordPress.org site. That's part of it. Also, you'll run into some limitations. I think you have to be on the $25 a month or higher plan of WordPress.com in order to get access to plugins. And even then, I believe it's kind of limited. So there's just not as much that you can do with a WordPress.com. If you need your website to be more scalable, then you'd want to go with a host and get WordPress that way. So when I say WordPress.org, that's just a way to download the actual like WordPress core. But if you go with somewhere like Bluehost or SiteGround or a web host like that, you don't actually have to go to WordPress.org to get it. They have a way to install it for you. So it's pretty easy to spin it up.
Great. Well, if this doesn't answer your question, the person who asked, just follow up and we'll get on that a little bit. Let's go over to Mason. And let's talk about actually taking the photos. What is the best time of day to take photos? And does that change based on what you're taking the picture of? What are your recommendations for that?
Yeah, that's a great question too, Joe. I definitely know that working with lots of different clients and lots of different businesses, I have experiences where different clients maybe don't know what they want or know what they need. So if you are wanting to show lots of people coming to your business or booming activity or client interaction of some sort, then you want it to be during the day, during business hours, right? That is possible if you can make that happen, if you can get releases from people, or if you're okay with just getting sort of snippet shots of the goings on in your business. But if you want something that's staged, or if you want to show clean product shots, maybe have no distractions going on, then it's going to have to be during non-business hours. So that being said, I would like to share my screen for a second to show a couple things. So I'm going to swap into there. So if you guys can see it, I recently did shots for, I work with Dollar Trees in Virginia, and companies linked with the Dollar Trees. So photographing the properties, they are trying to show no people at the stores. So this is taken early in the morning, and then there's some post-production put onto it. So, and sometimes as a photographer, you have to move people or go above and beyond to ask that objects be moved or things be changed around a little bit. So then here I have a, let's see if I can minimize this so you guys can see it. I did for a juicing life bar, and the owners in it, the guys are very happy, and the girl on staff, and they're just very much, you have to work with the people to get them to show the emotions maybe that you want to emulate or to show as a business. So working with people, it could be lighting wise or timing wise based on what happens in your business, if it's very busy or if it's very hands off. So, and I'll show, this is another one, but I wasn't necessarily trying to show it, but this is for like cars and restoration. So they have they have a front end, but then you have things going on inside where they are doing the actual restoration. So I could show you some of those later, but different times of day. Lighting is great at the end of the day or in the early morning. But if you're not going to get the customer interaction that you want, then you may want to factor that in. So thanks, Joey.
Yeah, great. In case anybody is having issues with the way that the presentation is viewing, I recommend that you put it on gallery view and then go to any of the videos that have just a black square with a person's initials in it. You can click on the right and go to hide non-video participants. And that way you'll just be seeing the 4 speakers, and it should be great on that. If there's any issues, let me know, and we can move on. So let's go over to Erica. We did a follow-up question for you, but let's give you a new one. And the big one is sort of talk us through what a sales funnel is and how do you build one?
Okay. So a sales funnel has like a series of steps where you're moving someone from, they're just barely aware of you, like they've just seen a post or two on social media, or maybe they've heard of you through a friend or something like that. But moving them closer and closer to them buying your service or buying your product or whatever. So you kind of want to map that out. Usually a sales funnel is kind of zoned in on maybe one product or one service that you offer. So you could think of it as a series of steps. Like step 1, they see your ad on social media. They click on it. Step 2, they are taken to a landing page. Maybe they watch a webinar. Step 3, they're prompted to book a call with you. And step 4, you actually get the chance to talk to them on the phone and tell them more about what you do, see how you can help them and make the sale. So that's pretty simple sales funnel.
Great, perfect. And that's a simple description, but I know that's a pretty big thing. So if anybody has any follow-up questions about sales funnels, let us know, and we'll make sure Erica gets to those. Let's see here. Let's do one for Michele. Michele, and then I'm sure you can probably work with Mason on this one, is somebody wanted to know that if they just found an image that they really like online, they can just grab it, right, and use it on their website or for their marketing. No one's going to really care.
Yeah, that's another good question, Joey. No, you, especially well, first off, you don't ever want to take an image that you don't have permission to use. I've known of people who have actually gotten in trouble for that. If you're, and primarily in digital, once you put the image out there and you're using it trying to sell your own products with someone else's images that you don't have permission to use, someone might get a little upset about that if they find it. So as a rule of thumb, if you don't have permission to use the image or you haven't purchased the image, I would say don't do it. But as a person, you know, not a professional here, like I know people do it all the time. It's just from a marketing standpoint, it's not something I would ever suggest doing. And this is, you're right, where Mason would come in. My recommendation is, I mean, there's always stock photo options available, and there are tons of different resources. So stealing an image off the internet, it's kind of like, why? When there are too many options out there to not do that. It's not worth the risk. But your images that you use for your branded marketing pieces, you want to make sure that, again, it's everything in design, it's coming back to reflecting who you or your company are, and having customized images that show your products, your employees, your space is always ideal. But you know, sometimes that's not possible, and that's where the stock photos come in. And I know Mason was touching on that earlier with, you know, making sure that, you know, why you want to hire a professional photographer. And that kind of ties in with why you don't want to just steal something off the internet when you can have your own images. Yeah, just as a rule of thumb, don't do that, please. And usually those images, if you're stealing them off the internet for print, I can't use them anyway. They're usually not high enough quality. They're going to look really bad and pixelated, and they're just not going to reproduce well. They're going to lessen the whole purpose of hiring a designer. So it isn't, you know, rule of thumb, again, don't do that. And I don't know if Mason or Erica want to chime in, because I'm sure both of them have encountered this as well.
I'd love to say something. So I realized that you say, okay, well, it's digital. I found this on Google. No offense to anyone, but you know, Google's great, right? We all use it. And so FedEx employees wouldn't walk over to or drive over to UPS, take the posters off of their UPS walls and drive back to their FedEx location and post them on the walls. So it's kind of the same thing, just digitally. And then if you're going forward looking at things that Michelle's been touching on, you're not going to be able to use those, or if you are using them, then you're using them without having the rights to them. So when you think of photography, not only do you want to think of the branding, like she was saying, people want to know who you are. They want to know what your business offers. What does your location have that another location may not, or why choose you over somebody else? And that can really convey through photographs taken specifically of you, your employees, your location, and anything that you might stand for as an owner or franchisee owner. So I think those are really important. And then when you hire a photographer or videographer, you have a contract, and then in that contract, that's going to carry over to you having the rights to those photos and being able to use them for both print and web, maybe also for television marketing, etc. All sorts of different things can be written into that. Can you use it for t-shirt designs, like she was saying, or do you have the rights to the small files or the large files? So you're going to get more for it, and you're going to have somebody to work with to work alongside if you need access to any of those photos at a different resolution. And then you have a marketing team, which today is Erica, myself, and Michelle. And so you would kind of bounce those things off of your marketing team, and everything would work very well together, as opposed to just piecemealing things off of the internet. So
yeah, because it's definitely more curated thing, and I think that's one of the thing in any of the branded marketing design, whether it's digital, print, photography, is that none of it's done accidentally. I mean, it's all put together, and there is a team behind the scenes that's making sure that there is a coherent message, whether through typography and content or the visual storyboard. And like Mason said, it's like you wouldn't go to another store or company and steal all their marketing stuff and put it on your own. It's not conveying you, you're selling someone else's stuff at that point. So yeah, you just having your own stuff and having your own image library, graphic library is very important.
Definitely, definitely. Erica, let's get another question over to you. Let's talk about website traffic a little bit. People want to know, how do they get more people to actually go to their website? What kind of tricks or tips do you know? SEO, paid ads, organic traffic. What's the best way just to get people on your website?
Yeah, I mean, for sure you want to do like the on-page SEO, like go through every page of your site, make sure you're targeting different keywords on different pages, things like that for Google. But I really think the biggest thing that you can do is to be putting your website out there, you know, making sure that you're showing up on social media. Paid ads are great, but also just showing up on social media consistently, you know, doing the print design, passing out your business cards with your website. So it's about everything you're doing outside of your website as well, you know, getting listed in directories. If you're in networking groups that'll put you in their directory, then that's excellent. Being a guest blogger on someone else's blog and having a link to your website from there, going on podcasts to speak, things like that.
Yeah, great. Little plug for Retail Alliance. We are looking for guest bloggers and podcast guests. So let me know in the chat if you want to do that. Yeah, great way to get more people to your site. I mean, just helping each other is the name of the game, the small business. Let's go over to Michele. Let's see here, a few questions. Okay, some people are asking, so they hire out a designer and they get a product. Are you able to make it in a format that they can later edit themselves? I know maybe sometimes you'll give them a logo and they may want to change its colors to a holiday theme, and they're just wondering if there's any sort of way that they can do that themselves.
So with logos, well, I mean, I guess with anything that most designers design, for myself, I would always give up, if asked, the native files. So I would always give you access to all the editable formats that I have. I mean, for logos, I give those, that's part of the deal. For brochures, for flyers, for collateral material, I don't necessarily give that editable files out without someone asking, because I kind of house all that together. And most of the time, clients aren't going to have the software needed to edit that information. Designers use specialized tools, programs to make and create the stuff that they're doing. So unless the client has that or those programs, chances are they're not going to be able to edit any of that information without coming back to the designer to do that. There are times where I've been asked to create things in Word or PowerPoint, and I have done that, but it's not necessarily an ideal situation. Those aren't the programs that I've been trained to utilize. So it's kind of a tricky question there, but it is one that I do get. So it's a yes, no type of thing. But again, it's like, if you've got the programs that I'm using, by all means, I can definitely supply that information so that you can make the changes. I have also in the past supplied the editable information to printers. So the clients have a printer that they use, they're doing and using their own print sources, and I can supply that information to the printer. So every time a small change needs to be made, where it's like we're updating the pricing, or, you know, now a team member isn't here, we've added a new team member and they want to update that collateral material. The printer can do it instead of going through me. The downside to that is sometimes the continuity between the design can get lost. And I actually think Erica might be able to talk about this a little bit. Once a designer has created something and then the client has access to it, they aren't trained the way that we are to make sure that the hierarchy of design and the way we're trying to lead people through things and the information. Sometimes those aren't things that the client or even the printer sometimes takes into consideration because that's not what they're trained to do. So it would be like me asking a mechanic if he could change my oil, and then, or that might not be the best thing. I don't know how to change my oil, so that's why this one works. But change my oil, and then can you give it back to me so that I can do it easily without any of the tools? And he's going to look at me, actually, probably very strangely. So it's very similar. But I don't know if anybody else wants to chime in, because I'm sure that might be something that's been asked, especially with digital, a lot.
Yeah, logos and stuff, I'll use something like Adobe Photoshop, or I'll use Illustrator to do that. So they would have to have that program to edit it. Something like a flyer, if somebody comes to me for that, I will, a lot of times, especially if I know they want to edit it later, or like I've had somebody where they wanted like a basketball resume. So obviously, and the boy hasn't graduated yet, so they're going to be adding stats to that little like flyer resume every year. So that needed to be editable, and I did it in Canva, which I recommend Canva to my clients if they're going to be doing their own social media or things like that. It's easy to use. So I'm happy to design things in that sometimes. But yeah, logos probably not.
Mason, what about you for your photography and videos? Do you ever provide the raw files or the unedited images, or what are your thoughts on providing that to one of your clients?
That's a question that I get. Yeah. So I don't often provide the raw files to my clients, and that is both an artist choice and a kind of a decision along the lines of what Erica was saying. They'd have to have this program to use it, to edit it. So most of my clients don't have programs that can handle, or don't have any interest in messing with the raw files. Most of my clients' businesses, like Michelle and I have discussed a little bit, they might be starting out. They don't really know necessarily what they want. They're like, yeah, we're starting this business and we need this, or we need to refresh our stuff, or we don't have a website. We need to talk to Erica and get that going. Like, so they need content. They don't know what that content is necessarily. So sometimes you have to be the person that helps, like direct them, helps say, hey, maybe this would work well for you. So that being said, I give high res JPEGs, and then typically finished video. You can, in a contract, put in revisions, or sometimes I charge for additional revisions depending on what the project is. And if a company wants to use the raw files or have the rights to the raw video files, if I want to engage in that with them, then I just work that into the contract and alter the price significantly, because they are getting something that is the base of being a creative artist. So
definitely, I've heard several photographers also say that, I mean, just realistically, somebody might edit the photo really bad and then say it's a Mason photo.
Yeah.
You don't necessarily want your name attached to that.
Yeah, I do a lot of different types of photography, and I would say that that type of thing happens on Instagram with teenagers a lot.
Yeah.
They're like, yeah, this is awesome, and this is Mason's photo. I'm like, cool. That's not what I shot, but okay.
Yeah, I've had to remove websites from my own portfolio before, because people will make changes to it afterward and use different photos or just change the text, and I'm like, this is not good. I didn't do that.
So oftentimes people are going to choose you for your style. So everybody on this panel probably has, not just speaking, but those of you who are listening, you probably are involved in a business that someone else also may have. There may be a competitive business, but people choose you, and because they want to work with you, they like your style and they like what you bring to the table. So if somebody is hiring you for your style and for what you have to offer, then offer them exactly that. So.
Hey, well said. We'll stick a little bit with the technical terms. So we discussed RAW when it comes to video and photos, which if anybody doesn't know, that's just an unedited file. That's just what he shoots directly from the camera or video. Let's go over to Michele. Some people have been hearing the terms raster and vector when it comes to their print files and their design files. What do those mean, and why would it matter to somebody?
Well, to most people, it doesn't matter at all until you need the right file, and then that's when the breakdown starts. So a raster file, it's pixels. It's an image. It's a photograph. It's something that's created with pixels to put that image together. So if a photograph is probably the best thing I can think of that would describe what that is. And a vector file is using math. It is able to put that image together in a way that is smooth. I don't know. It's one of those things. There's a lot of technical stuff that goes into what these two things are. But in a nutshell, if you want something for the web or you want something for print, for printing, you're looking more at the raster files. When you're looking at logos, you're looking at the vector files. So if you have, and this is where do I want to purchase my logo from someone online? They're usually, my experience is they only give you the raster file. So you get this raster file at a fixed size, and now you need to put it on a billboard. You can't. The raster file, it's at a fixed size, and the pixels that used to create it, they're constant. You can't just add more pixels to it. You can make the pixels smaller, you can make the pixels bigger. But if you've ever looked at a billboard close up, all you see are these big squares, but from a distance, it looks fine. And that's raster. In vector files, like your logos, you can take your logo and you can make it this small, and you can make it as big as you need to, as big as a billboard, and it will never lose quality. It is always going to look crisp. So when you're doing, I have this designing event t-shirts. I have a lot of clients that do events, or they were doing events, and I always need to get the sponsor logos so that I can put those together so that they can be ready for screen print or promotional items. You're going to do mugs, cups, whatever. Most of the time, it's ideal to give the printers the vector files. And if you don't have those, then usually, depending on the size of the raster file, you might have to recreate it, which causes more time and money because now that file needs to be recreated so that it could be used in other things. The other time that the raster and the vector becomes a problem is if you have a raster file, and this is primarily talking about logos. For me, this is where this problem comes up all the time. But I have a 4-color logo, and I need to do it on an event t-shirt. And the event t-shirt's only going to be 1 color. So how are you going to do that? With a raster file, that's much more complex in how you have to go about doing that. With a vector file, I can open the native program that was used to create it, and I can go in and change those colors if the logo was set up and created with that intention in mind. But that's a whole nother story. So I'm going to share my screen for a minute. I'm going to figure out how to do that because I actually have something that will show you the difference. I just realized I had that. Share screen. Oh.
Choose which screen.
Okay, hold on. And forgive me for a second. I'm prepared and not prepared all at the same time. So this is just a visual, all right, representation of the Zoom, and I are not getting along this morning. There we go. All right, so I'm not sure what you guys can see, but I had this for a different presentation, and I don't know if you can see my cursor moving around, but this would be the vector file. This is raster, and now both of these images are blown up. So you can see that the red doesn't lose any quality. The gray side, if it's blown up too big, it just loses the quality because those pixels, again, it's like you don't get to change how many pixels are added to it. It is what it is. And down here I have what, you know, the raster files and what the vector files are typically used for, or where they're created. But those are things that any designer can walk you through. But what you want to make sure of is that when you get logos, that you get all the file types that you might need. And that's, you want to make sure you have a vector file, and you want to make sure you have a raster file. And with the logo, are you getting the social media version, the stacked version, the horizontal version? Like, you should be getting all of these things with your logo, or at least having the conversation with the designer about what types of things you want to have. So hopefully it's actually a really hard question to explain what something is in this, for this question. And hopefully that makes sense. And I'm more than happy to try and explain further if anybody has any questions specifically. But in a nutshell, that's
the visual helps.
Yeah, the visual helps.
That was really
I guess the only follow-up question I would have is, why even ever use raster?
Well, for photographs, you can't do I mean, there is definitely a time and place for that. And they're also like when you're doing a website and the web designer's like, hey, send me the logo. I'm not going to send the web designer the vector file. I'm going to send them the raster file, because they don't need the vector file. The vector file you would only need to be able to send to people who need to alter it. They need to be able to edit that. And it's usually just the logo.
Yeah, and I will say the
Illustration
transparent background version is important too.
Is
Make sure you
very
send that.
important. Otherwise you end up with a white box,
Yes.
and that's a different question. But if you don't have the transparent version and you're like, hey, I want to be able to put my logo on this photograph, but I don't want the white box. Well, that you have to go in and either recreate the logo as a vector file, or you have to painstakingly, in some cases, take out the white background without losing quality or adding jagged edges, so that you don't see, so you can see through the logo.
Yes, and that's one of my biggest problems I run into when I'm working on something design and I get somebody's logo. It's like, all right, well, I guess this design has to have a white background.
That's, yeah, when you see the white background, it's like, huh, I wonder what file they had.
Let's go back to Erica and ask a few more website themed questions, or actually let's get a little bit more marketing for you, Erica. People want to know that, how do you market yourself as a business when you have a lot of different services and combinations of services and products? What's the best way to market yourself when you have that wide variety?
Yeah. So I actually work with a lot of companies that are like that. I work with a lot that are in the wellness field. And so somebody might offer like massage therapy and like guided meditation or something like that, which are two different things, but the same target audience may be interested in both of those. But typically they're maybe looking for one thing at that time, like maybe their back is hurting and they really want a massage. So if you are doing your marketing, like they're showing up on your homepage and it's like saying the 15 different things that you offer, it's not connecting with them specifically and what they need right then and there. So we talked about a sales funnel very simply earlier. So I would suggest having a sales funnel for, you could start with just one and then kind of add on, but having a sales funnel for each of your services or each of your products that you really want to highlight. So that way, when they are seeing that social media post, it's not just talking about 15 things that you offer. It's like talking about this one thing that you offer. You're saying who it's for very clearly, and you want people to feel like you're speaking directly to them with your marketing. So everything in that sales funnel, from the first social media post to the landing page, the webinar they watch, whatever it is, all of the text on that landing page is speaking to them and what the problem they're trying to solve for themselves in that moment. So that's what I do for people. A lot of times when we start, they probably have no sales funnel at all, and I'll zone in on one thing they want to focus on, like what's your ideal client, who can you help the best, and let's do one sales funnel for that. It's often hard because they're like, but I love all the things that I do. And it's like, well, let's start with this one sales funnel and see how that works, and then we can add another one later.
And that actually, everything Erica just said ties right in with print media as well. You know, you're not trying to scream everything it is that you do. You're trying to target specific audiences. Speaking to too many people about too many different things, you end up talking to nobody. So trying to figure out, it's like you might do all of these things, and that's great, but that doesn't mean you have to tell in this one advertising or this one thing that this is everything that you do, because it's not speaking. It's like, how can you relate to someone? How do you make that connection? And you make the connection by relating to someone with their need, not the world's needs. You can't, it's a really hard thing to convey to clients, to let's you know, simplify this, and get it into one or two messages.
Yeah, get specific. Like, you know, when you think about the content on your website, if you can help people with fibromyalgia, say that. Don't just say this product helps with pain. Say fibromyalgia, because that's what somebody's typing in Google search. So like, I have fibromyalgia, you know, I need help.
Very
Be
true.
specific, talking directly to them.
Yes. All right, Mason, we've talked a bit about photography with you. Let's talk a little bit about video. Can you tell us how video can help somebody grow their business?
Sure. A great reason to have video is a pandemic. You can't always say that, but right now is a great time to market yourself online. Why do I need video? Because a video can show, like Michelle was talking about, those senses. It appeals to various senses. So a photograph may pull you visually, but also you can use auditory response by using emotional music, or which you should get the rights to, or using visual panning, and you could use, depending on what you're showing. I won't show any video on here right now for sake of time and for lagging with Zoom calls, but if any of you guys have any interest in that, please contact us directly after the meeting. But you can show a variety of angles. Let's say you have a drone shot panning in to something, and then that shows like your business from a distance, and then if you have a brick and mortar, which a lot of people in retail alliance do, and then going into the store, and then your customer interaction, or maybe the things that you do to keep your place clean and sanitize, the things that you're doing to keep people safe. So there are a lot of different reasons to have a video, but if you have something visually stimulating, you can have photos, definitely, but a video is going to be even more stimulating, and it's going to keep people statistically on your site for a little bit longer, even if they were going to click over to another site, or they were going to scroll through something on social media. They're probably going to linger on it and watch if it's engaging, and if it pulls them in and tells a little bit about your branding and your business and what you stand for.
Ms. Erica, as a website designer, would you agree with that?
Absolutely, yeah. And then like Facebook algorithms and stuff, they just love video. Like if you post a video, you're going to get more traction than you would a photo. You post a photo, you're going to get more traction than you would text. So yeah, definitely appealing to the senses like you're talking about.
Definitely. All right, Mason, let's stick with video and photos a little bit. How important, you may touch on this slightly a little bit, but how important is it to have these kind of photos and video footage when you're not actually selling a physical good? So, I mean, it's easy to go on Instagram or on their website and just see what products people are selling. That seems to be a common thing people put up on their websites, on their media. But if you don't have an actual physical good you're selling, how important is that actually?
Sure. I would say it's very important. And I'm going to share my screen really quickly to show you a couple of things. Here's an example of, if you guys can see it, two women who hired me for their professional shots for their podcast, which kind of feels like what we're doing today. But they're not selling a product per se, but they want you to listen to their podcast. To get a feel for who they are. We did a whole session with them, with and without their podcast equipment. It's happy hour with Holly and Connie, so they do drink alcohol on the show, and so they also did shots at the bar and things like that in their home, because they want to show a little bit about how they wind down. It's about being a mom, so the show is, but so they're not selling a good per se, but they're showing who they are, and they're gaining listeners and traction by using these photos on Instagram and on their website and on the podcast to show who they are when you're clicking and listening, to put a face to the radio voice, basically. So, and then, sorry, this stuff gets in the way. Okay, so then this company, Bertrand Homes, they're a builder. So on their website, which I've put a lot of stuff on, they're not selling goods. They're not selling materials necessarily. They're selling their services, but they want you to see the finished product. So they built this kitchen. They made this beautiful, home renovations, things like that. And they want people to be able to see that. So they're showing something at the end. And then just to end on it a little bit, Little Lights is a childcare service local to Gloucester, and they hire me for a lot of their services. I've been working with them for years, and the photos aren't going to show goods. They're not selling goods. They're selling a childcare service. They're selling education. They're providing for children. They're creating a safe haven for them. So they want to show staffing. Here's a great staff photo. They also show, we've done pictures of their vehicles, classroom interaction, and in the next few weeks, we're doing some photos to show their PPE and how they're keeping up with all of that. So, so those are great reasons. And I guess one more while I have the floor. If you are a realtor, you could say that you're selling a physical good, but most of the time what you're doing is you're making a sale on someone purchasing a loan for a home that they're going to move into. So you're looking for a clientele, and so you want to match that clientele. So these are some fun shots of a realtor I work with who wanted some headshots to reach his clientele, if you can use your imagination to decide who that is. So I'll give you the floor again, Joey, and I appreciate you asking that, because I think it's very important.
Definitely. Yeah, those were all great shots too. All right, let's go to Michelle. We did have a question in the chat for you. Sometimes when someone goes to open a PDF they've been sent, or to go open it, or maybe to do like a quick edit in it, it'll say that they don't have the right fonts, and it changes the fonts on them.
Yeah.
How do you overcome this? How do you get the fonts? What do you do when that happens?
So PDFs are great. I love PDFs. I use PDFs all the time. However, when you're making the PDF, and I honestly don't, I wish I knew why this happens, but I'm not an IT person, and I didn't create Adobe Acrobat. But it is a very quirky program at times. So what is happening is the fonts aren't embedded into the PDF. The way to get around that, and it's, if you are we able to ask what program they're using? In my programs, you can convert the fonts to outlines or convert them to curves. And basically what that does is makes it an uneditable version at that point. And then you make the PDF, and they're no longer fonts, they're just images. So that's how you get around that, unless you want to talk to Adobe and figure out why it's gone wonky. It doesn't happen to me that often, but when it does, it's a pain, and there might be a better solution to this. And I'm sure there are other designers that get more technical into how to combat that issue. With the work that I'm doing, it doesn't happen often enough. So even if I learned the solution, I'd probably forget it because it only happens once every couple years. But the quick workaround for me is to convert the fonts to outlines, create the PDF, do not save the editable, don't save it, because then you've just lost all your text. But if you're doing something for a proof, that might, and the fonts are an issue, that would be one workaround. But if you're trying to edit it in the PDF, because what you're essentially having is font conflicts, and you don't have the fonts on the machine. So you could also just find out what the missing font is, and Adobe should tell you what that missing font is, and you get the font and download it onto your machine, and then that's another way to solve that problem.
There are several free websites for downloading fonts.
There are tons of free. There's defont.com, there's 101 fonts, there's, if you type in free fonts, like, you'll be able to find them without any issue. But there are also paid fonts that are out there. So depending on which font it is, hopefully it's one of the free ones and that's a quick fix for you. If it's not, you should still, the program should still tell you what font is missing, and you should be able to search that font name and find the font. And fonts range in price. On average, they're, well, depending on how big the font family is, from $35 up to a couple $100. So there are definitely ways around the issue. But without seeing what's going on, those are the quick fixes that I can suggest. And I don't know, Erica, you might be someone else that might have another solution, but.
Yeah, that's usually what I'll do. It'll tell you what the name of the font is, and I'll either Google the name of the font. Sometimes I get lucky and it is a free font and I can just download it.
Right.
I do check Google Fonts and Defont,
Yeah, Defont.
DAFont.com, that sort of thing, for the name of the font.
Cool.
Yeah, so
If you have a follow-up to that question, go ahead and let us know. And then we are getting close to the end. We got about 15 minutes left, so make sure you get those questions in. I have a few more that we're going to go through.
I've got one that came in, and yeah, because I'm just now seeing the chat, and I won't mention who, because I don't know if that was, but it was, what ways can you curate your own image library besides purchasing stock image photos? And I don't. So, well, to curate the image library, I mean, that would be hiring a photographer to get the images that you are looking for, and organizing those images in a way where, and that's more of a personal thing. If you're curating the image library, that would be organizing it in a way where you could easily access, have access to all those quickly. Like if you were a nursery and you're looking to have to get images, you would hire a photographer and they would come in, and what you want to do is, before the photographer gets there, well in advance, you want to really be thinking about what it is that you want to showcase. And I don't know if you're working with a designer at this point or a web designer, but it's a conversation that anybody on the team, the marketing team, whether that's you or other people, need to be talking about. So again, I'm just going to use nursery as an example. You're going to want to have pictures of the space empty. You're going to want to have pictures of plants. You're going to want to have pictures of different types of plants. Do you have trees? Do you have fruit trees? Do you have herbs? So you're just going to want to break that down as much as possible so you can hand that to the photographer so that they have that information. Because the photographer, if you don't talk to them about what it is you're looking for, then they're going to, well, they're probably going to ask you, but they're also going to put their spin on what they like. And they might miss some things that they don't know are really important to you. But I think Mason might also be able to answer some of that question as well. Like if you're working with an organization or a company, what is your process for how to make sure that you get all the images that they are looking for, and maybe even some that they don't know that they need?
Sure, yeah. So I would say that we are all experts in our own fields, which is another reason that I don't know that we necessarily touched on it. Michelle sort of did, Erica maybe a little bit, but that's why we hire and get hired. But that's why I pay for a tax preparer, because my tax preparer works on my taxes and they're an expert in what they do. So I'm an expert in photography and videography, but if I go to a plant nursery, or if I get a call from a plant nursery, since we're going with that, since that sounds like a fun one, and plants are awesome for the environment, then we, I don't know what they want to show necessarily. I don't know what is popular during different seasons. Summer, I don't know my summer plants from my winter plants. So I'm not sure what they're exactly trying to sell. So I want to know who is their audience. And if they don't know who their audience is, like, are they trying to reach hipster teenage girls, or are they trying to reach like 95-year-old grandmas? What's your range, or do you have an idea of what you're looking for? And then what are you trying to sell? So if they said, yeah, we're a family-owned business, it's been passed down from 3 generations, and that's important, and we want to make sure that we can somehow document that, or document the importance of that, if that's something that they want to use as a selling point. But I wouldn't know that necessarily without having that initial conversation and asking some of those questions that would lead me to have the ideas of what content they would want to show. So I'm really glad that Michelle asked that. And Erica, I don't know if you want to touch at that at all, or what?
I think you guys covered it.
Awesome.
I do have it's a great question. I'm glad somebody had that one asked. I do have a question though for Erica, which sort of leads into that. How do you decide what technology and marketing tasks that you like hire someone to do versus what you do yourself?
Talking about what the client or the business should.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I would say, what do you like doing? What do you hate doing? What do you have time for? What do you not have time for? So it's kind of different for every person, every business. I've got people that love to write their blogs, and we work together monthly to put out like 2 blogs a month. They write it, but they don't want to spend time editing it and putting it into WordPress and doing the SEO for it and finding the pictures for it, so it's like, she just loves to write. So she writes and she sends it to me, and I do all the rest of the work. And she's good with that, and I'm good with that. So it's kind of like, look at the tasks, like Mason just said, you're the expert in your field. So I would say, as much as you can, focus on that. And then have someone else, if you can. It takes a team, really, when you're trying to grow. Have someone else do your marketing for you. Have someone else do your technology for you, as much as you can. But I know that there's, budget issues and stuff. So I work with a lot of people that want to do it yourself as well. So like, I'll have a monthly strategy call, and we kind of say, okay, these are Erica's tasks and these are your tasks. And we work together, so I'm able to work within a budget, and they're doing some of it themselves, but I take on the more technical things, or the things that take more marketing knowledge. So.
Great. Perfect. All right. Let's do one for Michelle as we're getting near the end. Michelle, so you have a logo made for your website, right? And Erica could probably help with this one too. So you have a logo, it's on your website. Can someone just grab the logo off their website and use it if you partnered with them, or if they want to use it for something? Can they just right click and save as and be good to go? What are your thoughts on that?
Do they have permission to use it? No, I'm just kidding. Well, because usually you'd be taking your own logo. I definitely wouldn't take someone else's logo and put it on my website or use it. But no, for the print side, and I think for the digital side, it would probably be not much different. But again, it goes back into the size of the logo. If you're going from digital to digital, you might be able to. But again, it's not ideal because as the designer, you want to be able to have control over what size it's going on. And for print and for the digital, if you're going to take it off of the website, the size it is online is probably as big as it's going to be. So if Erica's designing a website and she wants to put that logo top and center and then have the menu underneath, she might not be able to do that. So, I mean, yes, you can take the logo off the website. You would have permission to do it. It's your logo, but it might not be ideal for the circumstances you're trying to use it in. So it's always a good idea to, again, make sure you have all those logo files, so that if it isn't big enough or isn't the right size or formatted correctly, that Erica or a designer can alter that and make it the right size, make it the size it needs to be. Erica?
Yeah, that's pretty common.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I'm usually making either a flyer or like a cover, Facebook cover banner or something.
Mhm.
And, you know, the logo is going to stay as big as it is on the website. So if you got a small
Yeah.
logo on your website, I can't make that any bigger. So it just kind of limits the design, you know, unless we have all the right files.
Right. And then for print, yeah, I mean, again, I would just go to say, no, I probably won't be able to use it. Yes, I can take it, but I probably won't be able to use it with just what Erica just said. I mean, it's probably going to be tiny. For print, you need 300 DPI resolution. The web is built on 72. So the difference between 72 and 300 is pretty big. So it more than likely won't work. Or is, again, as a rule of thumb, digital image taken off the website to use for print, not usually a good combination.
Right. So, as a business, if you partner with somebody, don't just tell them to take your logo off your website, and actually send them the files so they can do the documents and everything real up nice. Let's see here. So here's a question in the same sort of vein: does everyone need a logo? I've seen quite a few businesses and people, and they just don't have a logo and just use like a typeface or a font for their business name.
Well, I mean, you can have a type-based logo. So that's probably, I mean, if they're just using a font, I mean, that is their logo. So in that vein, yes, everyone needs a logo. It's a way to identify you without you being there. But does it need to be elaborate? No. Does it need to be over the top neon lights? You know, it depends on what your business is. If you're a lawyer, you're not going to have a logo like Nike or Target. Typically, the professional businesses and industries tend to have more type-based logos. That's not a rule, but it's just the way it ends up working. So having just your name or having just a type-based logo it's a logo type. So yeah.
Okay. Mason, let's do one near the end for you. How important is it to have high quality images of everyday items or goods? Can you just take it with your cell phone? Why would it be important to have a nice professional photo of it?
That's good, Joey. You could take it with your cell phone, but you may not know what you're looking for exactly or how to show the quality of the product, or maybe lay it out the way that would look nice on the website. So here I just have a nice little shot of some goat's milk soap, and soap is just a kind of an average everyday item, right? But when shot in the right light, and framed nicely, it can really show what your store may have to offer. So when somebody walks into the store, or when someone orders something online, they know what's going to be shipped to their house, and they know what they're going to get. And the feel, the mood of it is gonna show. So here you have some shots that I did marketing for Sweet Haven Lavender Farm in Williamsburg, and they obviously sell lavender, but it's an experience. So yeah, you come out and pick the lavender, or you can buy dried lavender things, lavender infused products, et cetera, et cetera. But they want photos of people showing what they have to offer, their products and services, maybe people enjoying being out on the farm, or we did some a variety of things. But then for, I saw we have a juice bar on here. It's not this one specifically, but I'd love to do your photos. But conceptually, here's a product. So they have bowls, and then they're located in Newport News. Here we are. We know those things based off of this photo. So what products do they offer? Well, if I saw this shot, maybe with a cell phone, not in this area, not arranged nicely, I may be less likely to go there. But seeing these shots, they are comforting and enjoyable, and it makes me want to go there and buy whatever it is that they have. Exactly. So, so that's how I would answer that question a little bit.
Well, and I think also something that's been said a couple times in this workshop is if you're going to Mason for the photography, you're going not just for him to just take pictures. He doesn't just go out and take pictures. I don't just design. Erica doesn't just throw together a website. We have a lot of experience in how to do that. So you're hiring us for our style, our experience. So yes, you know, the taking it with your phone. It's like people take amazing photos with their phones. I've seen some great photographers that have done that, but it's not just a snapshot. Like there's a lot of work that goes into making sure that those photos look the way that they do. And there's also on the post-production side, you know, the photo isn't just the photo. There's actually a lot of work that Mason puts into the photographs after he takes the photos.
There's lighting, there's composition, there's the setup, maybe removing some things from the area, or maybe adding things to the setup to make it more enticing, or to pair products together. And then, like, even if you're just listing things for sale on the internet for your online market, you want to show a high quality image of whatever that is. If it's you know, this microphone box, you want a high quality image of that, so that people know what they're getting, and it looks like a nice environment, and something that they would want to order and have shipped to their home. It doesn't look like it's just sitting in a dingy corner somewhere that probably has COVID-19.
Well, and I think the other thing that is all of the marketing, from the digital, the photography to the print, just it's all part of a package that conveys and tells a story, and it sends a message. So, you know, it's not that you can't do this stuff on your own. It's just there are ways that people have been trained to do it to make sure that it's shown in the best light. So, you know, like Erica has said, and I mean, I've said, it's like sometimes there are budgetary restrictions that keep you from doing certain things that maybe you want to do, but you're also a small, or not necessarily a small business, but your businesses, and you are experts in what you do. We're all experts in what we do. And we want to help you do what you do. That's why you started your business, is to do you. And we like to do us. So we're good at being us.
Can I tag team off of that one more time?
Sure.
Michelle touched on the concept of telling a story, and those photos from the Sweet Haven Lavender Farm that I briefly showed, we brought in a car, we brought in a couple, they had picnic foods, and I could show you all of that, but basically all of the goods are on the farm in the store once you get there, but they weren't showing any of that. They were showing the experience that you could have renting the space, using the space for a picnic, coming to the farm to pick. And so those are all things that you can do, and you can enjoy your lavender lemonade there, etc. But they used the photos for a blog. So we shot specifically through the couple showing up, and then, you know, kind of being lovey and hanging out there and enjoying the set as they're picking, and then they're having they're getting in their antique car and driving there, like to the edge of the field, and then the guy helps the girl out. She has a picnic basket. They get, they have a picnic. So it tells a story. It shows emotion, and it shows what the business has to offer to their clients, more than just products. And that is something that all three of us working together and working with your businesses can do for you.
Yeah, sometimes I know exactly what kind of size photo I need for the website, like the big photo on the homepage. I'm like, I need you to be off to the side so I can put text on the left, and I can communicate something like that to Mason.
And print's the exact same way. When you're designing ads or doing the brochures or marketing pieces, it's all, there is rhyme and reason to what we do, I promise.
It's all interconnected.
It is.
Yeah.
Well, great. I think we are out of time. I'd like to really thank all three of you for coming. If anybody wants to get in contact with you, what's the best way to do that?
For me, and I can put something in the chat, but it would be through my email, and you can email me through info@moxiedesigngroup.com, or you can visit my website, and there's a contact us page on the website as well. And I'll just, almost dropped my computer. I'll put that in the chat if anybody is would like that information.
My info is in the chat.
I'm trying to figure out how to do the chat.
And Erica, I see that your info is in there as well.
Yep.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you need a photographer, a website designer, or a graphic designer, you know who to reach out to. I'd like to thank everybody for coming to our STRIVE Masterclass panel, and I hope you have a great rest of your week. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.